Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chaudeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So it seems okay, yeah? Krishna Chaitanya?
Yes, Lord.
Seems okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just checking on our video. All right, devotees. Hare Krishna. So text 4 of Nectar of Instruction. We're in the middle of the purport. Oh, where's Mahaprabhu Kripa? Okay, we're going to have to start again. Well, no, we won't. Okay, so, okay, yeah, so I'm going to start again, First of all, some prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chaudeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Very good. So we are in the middle of the purport of verse 4. But before we continue, I'm going to read the verse again. Read the verse itself again. Dadati pratigrinati, guyam akyati prichati, Bhunkte bojayate chaiva shad vidham priti lakshanam. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. Yes, so, do you remember last night I asked you to please do at least one of these things? Do you remember? Did you remember? Did you try? Did you try? I hope so, because, you know, this is not just some theory. This is the truth. This we need to do if we want to develop love for Krishna and love for the devotees. This we definitely have to do. So anyway, if you didn't do it, all right, what can we say? If you did it, thank you very much, well done. I really appreciate it. But if you didn't do it, or even if you did also, oh, Ishvari Prema, she did. Well done. Whether you did it or not, please start making a practice of it. Start just getting used to interacting with devotees in these ways. It will be good for you. It will be very good for you. You will be the one who gains. Okay, so now let's see. We got to, what was it now? We finished 3 paragraphs, and there's another about 4 or 5 to go. So let's go through it. We're going to try to finish the purport this evening. We should be able to. Anyway, let's see how it goes. So paragraph 4 now. Paragraph 4. It's the one which begins the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And it has, in the paragraph is Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, Chapter 2, verse 6 is quoted, just so you know where we are in the text. So Srila Prabhupada then, he describes here, particularly in the beginning of the purport, Prabhupada describes how in ISKCON we invite people. We invite people all the time. And particularly we invite people on Sundays for our Sunday program, or as Prabhupada would call it, the love feast. This term, love feast, comes from Srila Prabhupada. So we invite people, and you should know, Prabhupada really liked the Sunday love feast to be there for the people. He really liked that. Prabhupada did not like it when guests would be there and we wouldn't have prasad. And not just prasad, but he didn't like it if we didn't have nice prasadam. Nice prasadam. Yeah. To Prabhupada, prasadam for our visitors and guests was just super important. Yes, so the Sunday program as such is a very important function, because the feast is one thing, it's very important, but the whole program is an opportunity for the devotees to, you could say, showcase what is Krishna consciousness, what is our temple, who are we, to present these things very nicely in such ways that people will become attracted. Yeah. In other words, it's really for reaching out to the people and trying to inspire them, to treat them in such ways that they become inspired to come back, and ultimately they become so inspired that these devotees, these Hare Krishna devotees, are so nice, and the temple is so nice, and the program and the prasadam, it's all so nice, I want to be part of it. Yeah. So we should really try and take the Sunday Love Feast program very seriously. And, like, of course, there's kirtan, there's a class, these are standard things, fixtures, they must be there. But we can do other things too. We can do dramas. We can make video presentations, for example. there's all sorts of different things that can be done to make it interesting and stimulating for the guests and for the devotees also, for that matter. So yeah, the Sunday Love Feast, very important program, and you may be aware that in some temples they have at least one devotee or even a group of devotees, and every Sunday it is their duty. They must find the new guests, those who have not been before, and then associate with them and really look after them very nicely in very personal ways. See they get a nice place to sit, see they get nice prasadam, and they also generally, they give the new people who are coming first time, they give them a small set of books as a gift. So Prabhupada was into the Sunday program. Make no mistake of that. Yeah, so like this, Prabhupada repeats the point that we invite the people to the programs to take prasad, and then the people invite the devotees. Prabhupada already said that, but he repeats that. This is reciprocation, back and forth, not just living on a one-way street. Sometimes they say of a person, the type of person who must have everything the way he wants it, or she, that this is a person who's living on a one-way street. Yeah, there's no back and forth at all. All right, anyway, so let's see, what's next? Well, you know what? I can, about distributing prasadam, let me inform you that I remember it was January 19, or maybe it was February, of 1977, the last year Prabhupada was present. Prabhupada sent out a letter to all temples about providing prasadam, not just on Sunday or festivals, but every day, nice prasadam for the guests. And I remember in our temple in Bhaktivedanta Manor, I remember we received that message, that letter from Prabhupada. It was a letter sent to all the temples in the whole movement. And I remember hearing the devotees reading out this letter and thinking, wow, that's really amazing. Let me just read part of it. This is an inspiration for you, or for all of us, about prasadam distribution, but also nice prasadam distribution. So Prabhupada said, now you must arrange in each temple, there must be sufficient stock of prasadam for distribution. You can keep first-class cooks, 2 or 3, and they should be always engaged. Whenever any guest comes, he must get prasad. This arrangement must be made, that the cooks prepare 10 or 20 servings at a time of puris and sabji, means nice prasadam. Puris and sabji, and you can add halava and pakoras. And the visitors must be supplied immediately. Whenever a gentleman comes, he must be served. As the 20 servings are being distributed, immediately the cooks prepare another 20 servings and store it. At the end of the day, if no one comes, our own men will take. We don't need to worry about that. So there's no loss. You cannot say, it is finished, It is not cooked yet. There is no supply for cooking, etc. This must be enforced rigidly. Wow. What do you think of that? Had you heard that before? All right, anyway, that's a serious instruction from Prabhupada, and he's really presenting it very strongly. Must be enforced rigidly. Anyway, so then we go on to, what do we go on to? Oh yeah, we just go on further with the paragraph that Prabhupada goes on to say that this sort of association between the devotees and our guests means those who are a little interested in Krishna consciousness, and our, like congregation and members and friends. These exchanges must go on. Very important. But Prabhupada says that, on the other hand, we must give up the association of the yogis, the so-called yogis, jnanis, karmis, and philanthropists, because their association will benefit no one, and particularly us. So Prabhupada is emphasizing that, again, he's already done it on a few occasions, he's emphasizing that we must associate with devotees and only associate with others, non-devotees, when we have to. We do not choose to just hang out with the non-devotees. At least this is the proper standard for devotees who want to advance. Prabhupada explains here that if a devotee really wants to achieve the goal of life, then the devotee should associate with other devotees. Yes, because Krishna consciousness is so unique. There are other schools of religion and philosophy and other ideas about life. But Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada's explaining in the purport, Krishna consciousness is really the only movement or organization or religious group, whatever you'd call it, which is teaching us how to actually develop love for God. That's a fact. So therefore we must associate with devotees regularly and avoid other types, particularly negative types of association. So Prabhupada goes on to make the point that, just in a general sense, all human societies, even primitive societies, they all have some form of religion. Even in some countries, I won't, mention any names, but in some countries where, they're, at least up till recently, some of the local ethnic people were living very primitive ways of life. Some of them would worship the sun. And their idea was that if we worship the sun tonight, when the sun goes down, then we will worship the sun. And why will we worship the sun? Because we want the sun to come back tomorrow. So we're doing worship of the sun to make sure, praying, let the sun come back tomorrow. And you know what happened tomorrow? Do you know? The sun came back. And the people the people then said, see, it works. It's a bona fide process of religion. Anyway, but Krishna consciousness is really something unique. And therefore Prabhupada quotes this verse from the Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, Chapter 2, verse 6. Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhaktir adhoksaje ahaituk yaprati hata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. This is Krishna consciousness. This is Krishna consciousness. It is unique amongst all other religions or schools of thought. And that's why we're in Krishna consciousness. At least as far as I'm concerned, I'm here because it's clear to me it's the best thing. If there was something better, I'd go and do that. But there's not. It truly is unique. So anyway, then Prabhupada goes on. Next paragraph you'll see is just very short, it's just a few lines. And Prabhupada's just emphasizing how beneficial Krishna consciousness is in other senses. It's one thing to develop love of God, that's the supreme goal of life. But in more general senses, then if people want peace of mind, tranquility, friendly relationships between men and nations, Prabhupada says they should also follow Krishna consciousness. Yeah. It's all auspicious. Love of God is there. Peace of mind is there. Prabhupada would say, peace of mind is the first installment. It's not the final result. It's the first thing that comes. That the fever of material life, it just goes down and the devotee feels, sure, I'm really glad I got out of that and I got into Krishna consciousness. So then, Prabhupada, we go on to paragraph 7, and paragraph 7 is one of Prabhupada's warning paragraphs. Watch out. Just watch out, because you might get into trouble. If you go against what has been said here, and you do some other thing, or particularly if you do something which has been recommended that you do not do, or you'll get into trouble. So this is a warning paragraph, you could say. And basically the warning is, Prabhupada's saying, don't associate with the Mayavadis, the impersonalists. Don't do that. And Prabhupada makes the point that these Mayavadis, they're anti-God, they're atheistic, and they don't appreciate Krishna consciousness or personal concepts of the absolute truth, and rather they try to oppose them and sort of, make problems for them. And even Prabhupada says that sometimes these Mayavadis, atheists, they get together with some of the politicians and try and promote materialism. You know, it's an interesting point. It's an interesting point that sometimes the politicians, they try to present some spiritual idea, but it's Mayavad. Like I remember when I first went to India the very first time, Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister or Prime Minister, I think. Prime Minister. And it was, the country was in what they called a state of emergency. Yeah, officially. State of emergency, the whole country, and it went on for, I don't even know how long, but definitely months. Definitely months. And I remember seeing posters around Delhi, many posters, quoting Bhagavad Gita, or not exactly, but sort of misrepresenting Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, misrepresenting. And they were saying, there was a slogan, work is worship. Work is worship. Now, of course, you know, the Mayavadis, they, because Krishna does emphasize, obviously, you must do your duty. Arjuna, you should fight. And don't be lazy, and don't do something which is not your duty. You must stick to your duty. It's such an important principle in Bhagavad Gita. But of course, the point is, you must do your duty for Krishna. Not just do your duty. Varnashram, all these different roles in Varnashram, including the occupational duties, they must be done for Krishna, not just done. If they're done for Krishna, then it's called Daivi Varnashram. And if they're just done, not for Krishna, but just for the sake of doing them, then it's called Asuri Varnashram. Asuri, or in other words, demoniac. So there's a very important point, that there were all these signs saying work is worship. And basically Indira Gandhi and her team, they were trying to get the country mobilized. Let's do something. Let's produce some stuff. Yeah, I guess they felt the people were too lazy or something like that. So yeah, work is worship. But I'm afraid work is not worship. Work is work. But when work is done for the pleasure of Krishna, then work is worship. But that point was not mentioned. And therefore Lord Chaitanya, when he, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, talks about Daivi Varnashram, doing your duties in terms of Varna, in terms of ashram also, he means, and he says, as services to Krishna. And he says, if you just do them, if you do what they call the Asuri Varnashram, you know what Lord Chaitanya says? That if you do your Varnashram duties, not for Krishna, but just because you feel they should be done, Lord Chaitanya says, then you go to hell. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Then you go to hell. So the Mayavadis, the politicians who try to, like in India, many politicians when they do their rallies to get the votes and during election times and all that. They quote Bhagavad Gita, they quote Lord Ram. But usually it's some mistaken conception. And the idea is, vote for me. Yeah, I'm trying to win you over to me. I'm not trying to win you over to Krishna or to Lord Ram. So, therefore, Prabhupada says we shouldn't speak with the Mayavadis. We shouldn't invite the Mayavadis. We shouldn't have anything to do with the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, who think that it's all one. Everyone is God, everything is God. These are Mayavadis, impersonalists. So we should just actually have literally nothing to do with them. And Prabhupada says we should definitely not disclose our minds to them. Guyam akyati prichati. We should never do that. Definitely not. Yes, so this impersonalism has been promoted. Different impersonal conceptions have been promoted in politics, and they undermine society, they undermine the people, and they undermine religion. Like, I'll just give you one example. We could do a whole class just about how impersonalism has infiltrated human society. But here's just one example. Abortion. I remember it was not long ago at all, it was just some months ago, in Ireland, where it used to be illegal for a woman to have an abortion. It became legal. I think they took a vote from the whole population of the country. And the vote was, yes, we want abortion to be there. And I remember seeing in the news a few photos of some women, when it was announced that, yes, abortion will be there, some women were celebrating like this is the best day of our lives. They're just dancing in the streets, like, yeah, great. We can kill our children. Wow, that's wonderful. They may not have thought of it in exactly those terms, but in effect it was like that. And it's shocking, actually. But anyway, in terms of impersonalism, what does abortion mean? It means that this child in the womb is not a real person like us. Therefore, we can kill the child in the womb, throw the body away, and it's not a crime. They would say it's good. But of course, when the child is born, then if someone kills the child or kills any human being, well, that's a very serious crime. But this is impersonalism. That child within the womb is not actually a person. Yeah, so impersonalism has infiltrated society, and ultimately the fault is with the Mayavadis, those who are preaching impersonalism. Yeah, they're sort of like the root of the problem. And Prabhupada says that, well, he gives a famous example, feeding a snake milk or milk and bananas. So in other words, we don't want to invite them and give them prasadam and sort of associate with them and interact. Because if we do that, we will be encouraging them with their poisonous business. Just like if a snake drinks milk and bananas, perhaps eats bananas, then its poison is increased. Yeah. So if we start sort of flattering the Mayavadis, spending time with the Mayavadis, associating with them, inviting them, accepting their invitations, etc., etc., it'll just be increasing their poisonousness, and we really must not do it. So, let's see. Prabhupada says, it's in the middle of the paragraphs there somewhere, we should not extend invitations to Mayavadis and atheists, nor accept their invitations, for by such intimate intermingling we may become affected by their atheistic mentality. Yeah. And, here's an interesting little story from Srila Prabhupada, that right in the very, very beginning of ISKCON in 26 2nd Avenue, Prabhupada would give lectures, I think Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And the new people who are sort of, a little bit devotees, or they're just like guests or friends, they noticed many things, but one thing in particular they noticed, that from time to time Prabhupada would talk about the Mayavadis and get really aggressive and angry about how these Mayavadis are no good. So it's described in Lilamrita that some of the new devotees, they discussed this after one lecture. What is it? The Swamiji, he's got such a thing about these Mayavadi people, whoever they are. What's the problem? And one young person suggested, he said, well, look, Swamiji is an old man. Old people are often irritable. They're easily angered. So maybe he had some bad experience with a Mayavadi, and it's just it's there in the back of his mind. In English, we would say, he's got a bee under his bonnet. If you understand the idea, a bonnet means a hat. He's got a bee inside his hat, so that's definitely something to get agitated about. But it's not like that. Prabhupada actually understood how dangerous they were. So then, and I'll tell you another interesting thing. Here's an interesting thing. In the early days of the movement, during the hippie days, so many hippies, were interested to some degree in Krishna consciousness. Really, really a lot. Krishna consciousness was kind of like mainstream amongst the youth. Yeah, it's a fact. And but the youth, the hippies, they were so much into drugs. And sometimes drug dealers who were hippies would come and donate money to Prabhupada. But then one time, one of the drug dealers did that, and later, or immediately after, one of the devotees who knew that drug dealer, he told Prabhupada, this is drug money. Yeah, it's drug money. And Prabhupada said, oh, we cannot accept this. And he had him give the money back. That was in New Zealand, actually, where I'm from. Yeah. So we got to be careful about bad association and becoming affected by it. The last thing I want to mention, is in this paragraph. You'll see if you look down the paragraph, it's almost at the end. Prabhupada refers to a Chaitanya Charitamrita verse, Anchalila 6, 278. Vishayira anakaile dushta hayamana. By eating food prepared by worldly people, one's mind becomes wicked. Oh, that's bad. So, yeah, we don't extend invitations to Mayavadis or atheists, like staunch ones, and we don't accept any food they may offer. Yeah. And particularly we should stick to eating food cooked by devotees. Because when people cook food, because one has to focus when one is cooking, so some of themselves goes into the food. And if you eat food cooked by a non-devotee, you'll pick up some of that non-devotee type of attitude which has got into the food. Whereas if you eat food cooked by devotees, prasadam, then their bhakti has gone into the food. And so you'll get some of the bhakti. That's very good. But otherwise, food cooked by non-devotees, we should definitely avoid it, unless there's some very special situation. You know, there were occasions, not many at all, but there were occasions when Prabhupada had devotees, when they're traveling on a train, jump off the train at a station and buy some samosas or some little savory things that were being cooked and sold by some walla on the platform. But it's not to be done as a general practice, definitely not. And here's an interesting point. Bhishma, in Mahabharata, the story of the Pandavas, in Bhagavatam, he appears here and there. He's a well-known person, and he was a great supporter of the Pandavas, and actually he was a protector of the Pandavas. But when the Battle of Kurukshetra happened, he fought against the Pandavas. And he actually tried to kill Arjuna. So what happened? You know, he's their protector, and you know, he really took care of them when they were young. But now here, at this very important time, he's fighting with them and trying to kill them. What happened to him? Well, there's a number of reasons, actually, but one very important reason given by our previous acharyas is that his mind became affected because he ate food cooked by Duryodhana. Duryodhana, you know, I think, he is the chief bad guy in the Battle of Kurukshetra. He is the chief demon, actually. Yeah. And Bhishma was living with that family. He was a member of the royal family, and he was living with them. And Duryodhana would cook. Duryodhana was the prince. He didn't need to cook, but he liked cooking, and he would cook sometimes, and Bhishma would eat it. So that's interesting, isn't it? I see there's a question about abortion. Please take that down, Premagni. We'll answer the question tomorrow night, Courtney. Tomorrow night we'll do questions from this verse. Okay, so right, now we come to the end, basically, of verse 4, the purport of verse 4, pretty much. And Prabhupada's really just summing things up. The conclusion. Well, let's just read a few sentences. The conclusion is that we should always keep company with devotees, observe the regulative devotional principles, follow in the footsteps of the acharyas, and in full obedience carry out the orders of the spiritual master. Yeah, this is a, foundational point, the conclusion, summing it up. And Prabhupada makes the point that really we should try, we may be beginners, but we should try to come to the level of a middle-class devotee, Madhyama Adhikari. We're going to discuss this not tomorrow night, but because we're doing questions tomorrow night, but the night after, the following night, day after tomorrow, about the different levels of devotees. So through association with the devotees and through rendering devotional service, following in the footsteps of the acharyas, following regulative principles, so on and so forth, we should try and progress in devotional service and at least come to the middle class level of being fixed and focused in devotional service. Budetli возможно послать несколько письма на Facebook Live, пожалуйста, быстро, прямо сейчас. Thank you. Okay. So then Prabhupada gives a final conclusion about, Prabhupada's final conclusion is about dadati particularly, giving. It's easier to receive generally than it is to give. Yeah. So giving charity, giving prasadam, giving advice, giving. This is very important. Receiving is also important, but giving is particularly important. And Prabhupada gives a little summary about giving in terms of money. According to the Dadati principle, an advanced devotee is supposed to spend at least 50% of his income on the service of the Lord and his devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami has set such an example in his life. When he decided to retire, he distributed 50% of his life's earnings to Krishna's service and 25% to his relatives, and kept 25% for personal emergencies. This example should be followed by all devotees. Whatever one's income, 50% should be spent on behalf of Krishna and his devotees, and this will fulfill the demands of dadati. What are we really meant to do? Are we meant, just whatever you earn, are you meant to just give half of that for Krishna, and then give another 25% to your relatives? How are you going to live unless you're earning a lot of money? So the GBC body actually has discussed this at length on a number of occasions. And the conclusion, official conclusion of the GBC body is that after your basic expenses for living in a normal way, whatever's left over, you should divide like that. You get the idea. And of course, as we've mentioned, we should not live extravagantly. Simple living and high thinking. But simple living meaning a decent, adequate lifestyle so that you and your family have enough and you can live basically nicely. So, but once that's taken care of, then give to Krishna and give to relatives and keep some aside for personal situations that may arise. And then Prabhupada finally, there's the very last little paragraph, last little sentence. In the next verse, Srila Rupa Goswami informs us what kind of Vaishnav should be selected as a friend and how Vaishnavas should be served. Yes. So we'll go on to that day after tomorrow. We'll go on to verse 5. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.